What's up, guys? I'm Chris Warrens, and since 2017, I've been a full-time luxury watch dealer, passionate about helping you navigate the world of high-end timepieces. Alongside that, I run a few other ventures: consulting, writing, public speaking, real estate, and a nonprofit in veteran services. But on this channel, it's all about watches, your go-to place for education, insights, and building a community of enthusiasts who share the same passion. If you find value in this content, we'd love for you to hit that like button and subscribe, especially since 98% of you statistically watching haven't done so yet. With that said, let's dive into today's show. 5 best starter Rolexes. 5 best starter models for Rolex. Let's run down some great options that are budget friendly, that are starter examples for the Rolex brand. Now, I'm going to give you 5, okay? None of them are better than another. I'm just, in no particular order, giving you my 5 best starter models that really don't have too high of an entry-level investment into the most recognizable brands and watches on the face of the earth. All right, starting with number 5, we're going to talk about the reference number 1603 Datejust. It was made almost mid-century at this point, 60s and 70s. It came in steel with an engine-tuned bezel in steel, similar to a fluted bezel, but not a fluted bezel. Mostly found on Jubilee, and it costs anywhere on a decent example between $3,000 and $5,000, depending on condition. Condition plays a huge part in any vintage watch, and you can find these for $3,000, and you can find really nice examples for even $5,000. So this is one of the best entry-level or starter Rolexes. Closely followed by number 4 in a very similar Datejust, the 1601. It's very similar to the 1603 Datejust with some small differences. The 1601 came with a fluted bezel in gold and was available with steel, two-tone, white, yellow, and rose gold. This is also a 36 millimeter, and most decent examples you find were produced pretty much in the 70s. So there is some age to these. Condition plays a huge part, just like the 1603, but the price point, the cost point, you could find these for $3,000. You can find a really nice example for $5,000. And it really, really comes down to condition. I can't beat that part into it enough. Number 3, a little bit of a curveball here. I did an Air King 550. It was produced mid-century for decades. It's a little bit smaller than the Datejust that we were talking about at 34 millimeter, and it's still super cool. It's still a great piece. I still see a lot of these being traded, and they can be found for around $4,000, which really isn't too bad for a mid-century piece. Number 2, the 16233 Datejust. We've talked about this piece in particular quite often on the shows when it comes to Rolex. It's a great all-around piece, and the price point's going to be a little bit higher than the rest of these, but it's still worth talking about considering it's the 80s Miami Vice two-tone 36 millimeter Rolex. For 36 millimeter with a little bit of gold in two-tone, it's a lot of watch. And it was made from the late 80s through the mid 2000s. A bit newer, but still you need to look for signs of wear, age, and the overall condition with these neo-vintage or vintage Rolexes. Some things you really want to look for on any vintage Rolex or neo-vintage Rolex, including the 16233, is things like patina on the dial, saggy bracelets, and aftermarket parts that do get put on these, as they do trade hands quite regularly and have traded many hands over the life of their existence. The 16233 really depends on condition. At the lower end, needs a little bit of love, might need a repinned bracelet. You're looking at about $4,000. On the higher end, diamonds on the dial, bracelet isn't saggy, no patina, serviced, running well, full links, about $8,000, give or take. Personally, I really like the big diamond marker variation. In my humble opinion, it is the best looking 16233 there is on the market. Okay, last but not least, number 1, reference 16610LN Submariner. All right, not to be confused with the 116610LN. The 16610LN was made from the 80s to about 2010, and it's in 40 millimeter. Now, this sub is going to have the highest price point of everything we're talking about, and it's not necessarily an entry level Rolex. However, it's a good starter Rolex for a lot of people. Even though it might not be a starter Rolex for some, it is for others. It's a classic Submariner design, and I wouldn't necessarily call this vintage, but maybe more neo-vintage. The 16610LN has a little bit more of a vintage design in comparison to the more modern Submariners like the 126 and the 116. Specifically, it has a little bit more of a slender case and an aluminum bezel inlay. It does lack some of the more modern qualities like ceramic and sapphire crystals, but all in all, the Submariner is pretty timeless and it really doesn't change. There's just little idiosyncrasies to include what we just discussed. Some other things to note, the 16610, it went through some other minor updates in production since it was being produced for so long, including the addition of Luminova in 1999. A very interesting upgrade, which isn't specific to just Rolex, but in 2003, any 16610LN prior would have holes in the lugs, which allowed for easy switching between bracelets and straps. But eventually in 2003, Rolex went away with the hold case. Personally, I really like the look of a no-hole case. It is very easy to pop a bracelet off with a hole case. I was just doing it today earlier on a 16233. It's very, very, very easy. But when it comes to streamlined look, in just my personal opinion, I prefer a no holes case. So cost. What will this cost you? It really depends on condition, but you can look at about $8,000 to $10,000 depending on condition and year. Of course, you can find them for above 10, and of course, you can find them for below 8, but figure between $8,000 and $10,000. But it's a really good starter Rolex sub $10,000. So if you're interested in any of these models or want to learn more about working with us for one, our link is in the show notes below. And before you go, I'd love to hear your feedback on this review and what you think of the review. I do enjoy talking timepieces and like to respond to everyone, no matter their perspective. So if you haven't hit the like button or subscribed, please do. I appreciate you all and look forward to seeing you next time. Peace.